ancestors are from Africa. So we are, and since we are born here in America, we are going to refer to ourselves as African Americans. The term came from white people who decided, like I've said before, we get offended by words. If we use any word in our society for a long period of time, at some point that word becomes offensive, and we feel the need that we have to change or use a different term. So black people being called black people got old, I guess, with white people, and they decided to call us something a little bit more formal, and that is African American. And some white people just don't like it. They don't like it. I've had three different white people say, why do y'all, the first white guy said, why do y'all have to be called African American? Now, the answer is coming up. It's time for us to go to break again. So, hopefully the 30-second ad will be slipped right in here, and I'll be right back after this. All right, we're back. So, anyway, I was talking about the term African American and how it never dawned on me for that term to affect me in any way until recently, in recent years. Now, I'm not just talking about recently, but in recent years, I've had 3 different conversations about that term, and it was all because some white person asked me about the term, and I didn't know that it made a bit of difference in the world. But first, some older guy, is an older guy, a white guy. No. This guy was a middle class age guy. The old guy was next. But first, it was a guy who's like 40 or something. He asked me, Why do you guys have to be called African Americans? Why can't you just be Americans? And I did not tell him the truth was that, well, if you white people would just treat us like Americans, we would act like Americans. But since you are so, and it wasn't him. He didn't seem to be a racist person at all. But I was like, you're asking me a question that you should already know the answer to, but since he doesn't know the answer to it, I'm going to explain it. I didn't tell him that, because it would have taken me too long to get to the explanation. But I told him, listen, we are Americans because we were born here in the U.S. You know what I'm saying? So, but Africa is our heritage. So that's where the term came from. I was just telling him where the term came from. And he said, yeah, but you're not African because you were born here in the U.S. And I said, that's a silly thing to say. That's kind of like saying if your parents came from Ireland, you're not Irish because you were born here in the U.S. You're still Irish. It's your background. It's your culture, man. Being born somewhere else doesn't eliminate your culture. I'm an American citizen. I was born here in the U.S. My mother was born. My father was born here in the U.S. My grandparents probably born here in the U.S., but our heritage is Africa, okay? And the term African American is not something that black people made up and decided we're going to call ourselves this. This is a term that, a group of white women got together and decided, you know what, I don't like calling black people, so we should call them something that's a little bit more formal. How about African American? Okay, yep, that sounds good. Let's stamp that on them and move on. Next subject. Okay, this is not something that we decided to do, but I don't mind the term. I don't care about the term, but I don't mind it. What make me want to be called African American more is because it seems to irritate so many white people. It seems to irritate them, which you have no business being mad about something that has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a bit of difference at all. Why would you care that we are referred to as African Americans? Why would you care? It doesn't matter. I didn't even tell this guy that it doesn't. I think I did actually tell him that it doesn't matter to me. But he seemed to be so annoyed by it. I just thought, you know what? I think I want to be called African American more now because you're annoyed by something that shouldn't make a bit of difference to you. But I explained to him that this is not something that we chose, but the term is related to our heritage. Just like he said, well, what if white people decided to call themselves Italian Americans or Irish Americans or Scottish Americans? I said, I don't care, dude. I don't care. Why don't you do that if that's what you want to do? He said, I don't want to do it. I said, well, then don't do it. But I don't care. That wouldn't make... Why would I care? I don't even understand why you care. If black people are called African Americans, if you want to call yourself an Italian American, do it. If you don't do it. End of story. I mean, come on. I can't believe. And then I thought this was a one-time thing. A few months later, an older white guy, he was probably like in his 60s. He approached me with the same conversation. I was like, he said, hey, started talking to me. He was another truck driver. Started talking to me and said, we were talking about different things. And then he said, hey, you know, one thing I don't understand is why black people call themselves African Americans now. And I said, oh no, not again. Not again, this ridiculous conversation going to happen again. And I listened to him for a minute, and I'm thinking, he said, you're not African Americans. You're black. You're black. And I said, wait. Since when do you get to decide what I'm going to be called, mister? Okay, if I want to be called, at this point, he was irritating me. You know what I'm saying? Because he's decided that we should not be called African Americans. We should just be called black. Just, you're black. And I'm like, dude, first off, I'm not black. I'm brown. I said the same thing to him as I said to the little kid. But only because he was irritating me. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm going to point out that I'm brown. I'm not black. When someone starts getting on my nerves about something that has nothing to do with them. And the term African American, I want every white person who listens to this podcast to know the term African American, not one black person on this planet cares, or in America, because it pertains to people here in the U.S. who were born here, which most of us black people that live here in the U.S., most of us are born here. There's a few Haitians and Jamaicans and Africans who actually came from Africa. So that live here. But for the most part, most black people here in the U.S. were born here. And you probably be able to tell by the accent or the lack thereof or the slang. And but anyway, this white guy, this older white guy, he said, you're black. And I told him after I told him, you know, I'm not black, I'm brown. And then I said to him, listen, dude, what difference does it make to you? And he didn't respond. He just stood there and looked at me. I said, why do you care? I said, you know what? You're the second person who asked me about that term, African American. And what I don't understand is, why do you care? Okay? Who cares? It's not hurting you. It's not taking anything from you if black people are being called African Americans. It's not doing anything to you. Why do you care? So, he walked away. He was like, from the conversation with a different perspective, I hope. Thinking, okay, I guess this guy had a point, that doesn't really have anything to do with me, and I shouldn't care because it's just a term. It's not an offensive term. It's not a vulgar term. It's not any kind of term. It's just a term that identifies our heritage and the fact that we are Americans at the same time. That's all it is a freaking term. Now, months later, again, a young lady that is an ex of mine, said almost the same thing. Hey, I don't think black people should be called African American. I'm like, oh God, no. Oh no, not again. What the fuck? What is going on with white people that y'all are so overly concerned with a term that has nothing to do with you? Why? This term, there's a lot of other stuff to be concerned about. You know what I'm saying? But the term African American is not one of them. It's not something that you should be concerned about. I was never concerned about it until I kept getting asked and kept getting white people telling me that they didn't agree with us being called African Americans, which, guess what? I don't care what you agree with. I don't care. I never cared about the term, but now that you said it, I do. I want to be called African American since so many people complain about it, because it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter to you. Okay? And don't say, hey, well, what if we want? I don't care. I don't care what you want to be called. I don't have time in my life to sit there and worry about nonsensical things that you want to be called. Okay? You could legally, you're an adult. You could legally go change your name to Frankenstein. And guess what? I would not care. But anyway, this young lady, and she was an ex of mine, said the same thing. And she was like, you're not African Americans. You're just Americans. Why? And the whole time, all three of these conversations were going on, I was thinking, y'all spent, and maybe it wasn't these three people, but white people in general, spent all this time treating us like we're different. And then when we accept this term, because black people accept the term African American because we don't care about the term. Okay, if you want to call us African Americans, okay, it's no big deal. No one cares. Like I said, it's just a term that says this is your heritage and you're an American citizen. African American. It just means you're a black person, and this is a more formal term. That's all it means. It's nothing for you to argue about. It's not a reason for you to question us about. If you want to, go ahead, pick out your best black friend. Like these three people. One guy I worked with, we worked at the same company and we were driving in the car. And when he brought this up, the other guy, the old guy who was in his 60s, I just met that guy like 10 minutes before he said that. He didn't like the fact that black people were called African Americans. And I just wanted to hear his arguments. I really felt like saying, wait a minute, who cares what you like, dude? You don't get to decide what we're called. I don't like it. So what? I don't like it. How arrogant is that anyway? This guy would tell me he doesn't like the fact that black people are called African American. I don't like it. I'm like, so what? Who the f are you? And why should anyone listen to you? I didn't say that, though. I was polite with the guy. Anyway, I never thought three people. I thought it was just a one-time question when the guy I work with said that. But it came up again and again. So it seems to be a reoccurring theme that white people, that these are not racist white people. It didn't come off as racist to me. It just came off as arrogance of them trying to tell me they don't like that term, and so therefore they don't agree that we should be called that. And they kept asking me, well, what if we decided to? I don't care. It's an insignificant, discussion about your heritage. I don't care if you're Irish or or Italian or